Over the past couple of years, we have seen that time and time again, Kathleen Kennedy has upset a large portion of the fan base and the overall fandom, especially with movies out there like The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, really not living up to expectations, and that really led a lot of fans to become divided. Even Kathleen Kennedy being involved with the Boba Fett series and the Kenobi TV show led to a lot of disappointments of some of the Disney Plus iterations of Star Wars. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the kind and great support. Now that brings us to exactly the great thing of what's really happening right now at Star Wars and how it does indeed involve George Lucas, the father of Star Wars himself, right? So, one thing that we do know about when it comes to, of course, George, John, and Dave, the trio, if you will, that's really steering things in the right path right now, is what they're really doing to accomplish the overall Legends universe to become canon as much and accurately as possible, as well as really kind of just getting as much TV shows out there as they can that's going to gravitate toward the hardcore fan base. Now, that's not to say that they're excluding the casual fans, but they really do want to please the long, Star Wars fans that have been around for a very long time. Now, with that being said, what George Lucas recently did, since he does have more privileges as of late over at Lucasfilm after working directly with John and Dave, what he recently did, I think, is something that truly is special, and without a doubt, it is going to save the Star Wars franchise and the fandom overall, and how the fans are going to react to the future of the franchise and the content that's on the horizon. Now, with that being all done and said, what's really exciting about all of this is exactly what George Lucas recently just decided to do. Now, with Lucas officially working with John and Dave on the future of the franchise with multiple Star Wars shows, it's described that currently George Lucas, and of course, he was given the authority to make certain changes to the brand that was given the okay by Disney higher-ups. Lucas recently was the one responsible for choosing some of the high, of course, pitches made by John and Dave for upcoming new Star Wars TV shows, and which ones to place into the empty spots that were cleared out that used, of course, were initially for Kathleen Kennedy projects, essentially. Now, Disney has now been clearing the way for the roadmap for more John and Dave content, and Disney has now been allowing George to give the okay on certain show pitches being created by Favreau and Filoni. One of them is now said to be a Luke Skywalker focused series that is currently dubbed as Star Wars Jedi Knight, that John and Dave presented to George and had to await him to greenlight the project, which he actually recently did behind closed doors, and they are aiming to release this sometime in 2026. So let me just pause here quick for a second. Now, we already have heard about this Jedi Knight series of how it's going to be a Luke-focused show. Not that it's necessarily a Luke Skywalker only show, but it's going to have a lot of Luke in there. And it's going to be focused on him, it's going to be focused on the lives that surround him, like Ben Solo, for example, or even Leia and Han Solo, for all we know. The thing about this, of how it's going to be about Luke and his social circle, is a very interesting take on the franchise, and how George was the one that greenlit this and gave it the okay. So, I believe that this is the one show, the one installment, even though it is quite a far ways still, it is going to reunite the fans if they play their cards right. It's going to really save the fandom without a doubt, and it already is. I mean, you guys remember what happened to the fandom when Luke entered at the very end of Mando 2? The fans all came together, fans were hyped, fans were talking, conversing with each other, really just kind of talking about that for months on end. It was a special moment, and I believe it was one of the biggest surprises ever since the I Am Your Father moment, when Luke made that entrance. And John and Dave really do succeed when it comes to surprises, let me tell you. Now, the thing about this, too, is that given that it was George who made the ultimate call to greenlight this Luke Skywalker-focused show that is currently dubbed Jedi Knight, that's going to be based on the Jedi Outcast video games and stuff like that. It's going to be inspired by that. It's going to have characters thrown in there from Legends that we never got to see in live action just yet. So there's a lot of things happening for this that's really going to stem from Legends. Continuing on here. Now, the series is set to focus on Luke and the lives that surround him, such as family and friends, and Lucas will be involved as a co-writer for the series. Now, Luke's cameos in multiple shows are said to be, of course, gearing up toward this major new Star Wars TV show, as well as a Mandalorian trilogy that will actually include Luke also. So we talked about that too, of how there is a Mandalorian trilogy on the horizon. It's going to be considered the new sequel trilogy, quote-unquote, as it will focus on Luke and be considered a continuation of the Skywalker saga as well. The thing about this too that I think a lot of fans need to be very well aware of is the fact that we have George making the calls and greenlighting certain projects as well. We also know that his original first TV show basically is going to get resurrected. That's called Star Wars Underworld. That is going to happen. John and Dave are working on that as well, and George will be involved. And that's basically going to be the resurrected version of the first live-action show that got canceled back in 2007. So there's a lot of great things coming out of this because two things. We know that George Lucas really is long overdue to do something very special for the fans, and he's doing it right now. He already just did it by greenlighting this project, and how they will be talking more about this next year, officially speaking, at their Star Wars Celebration, wherever it's going to be placed next year. There's a lot of great things coming from John and Dave, not just on the scale of including Luke, but also on the scale of really revisiting just the mythology side of Star Wars, right? The things that fans love the most. Good and evil, dark side and light, Jedi and Sith, the Force, dark side users, light side users, stuff like that. They're focusing more and more on that, and we can already see what they did with the Mando Season 3 trailer of how we are getting more Order 66 flashbacks, and we already talked about this months ago, that there's going to be multiple flashbacks, not just one, that's going to lead to a specific revelation of a prequel trilogy-oriented character. Makes you wonder who's behind that door, right? I think we all know who it could very well be. Now, that brings us to whether or not this is necessary. Some fans may not want a Luke-focused show, and some fans' defense to that is maybe overusing Luke or oversaturating Luke could really devalue the character. I don't believe so. I think that since it's not just going to be about Luke, it's going to be just a Luke-focused show, where it's going to also have other characters thrown in there. I think it's going to have a perfect balance. I'm not too worried about that at all. So I don't really think that's anything to really be afraid of. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.